no one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
She just sounds bitter and angry.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
Rachel Zegler had hoped to calm the storm, but her latest video only intensified it. The clip, now viral, appears to have been filmed from her bedroom, with the Snow White star staring directly into the camera. Her expression flickered between raw vulnerability and quiet defiance as she insisted that, despite the waves of online backlash, audiences were still showing up to support her work. Her voice wavered, caught somewhere between tearful sincerity and steely determination, as she defended her performance and condemned the constant negativity that had dogged the film from the beginning.
When I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere, and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
It felt like a plea wrapped in pride, a last, desperate attempt to wrest back control of the narrative. But the internet had already passed judgment. Within minutes, snippets of the video were everywhere, spreading like wildfire. TikTok creators stitched it with reactions that swung from shocked disbelief to full-on parody, turning her earnest words into the latest viral spectacle.
Excuse me. Your curtain. Please allow me to help.
Help? From you?
I didn't mean to offend. I just thought you should know that
That I should know what? That some privileged white guy thinks his opinion matters? Get over your entitlement. I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to ride in on your high horse.
Instead of delivering the redemption arc she'd clearly hoped for, Rachel had unintentionally given her critics fresh ammunition. The hashtags told the story better than any headline could. Hashtag Snowflop was suddenly everywhere, climbing the trending lists as the internet turned her heartfelt video into another round of ridicule.
Oh wow, Snow White flopped. Who is surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most out of touch, and disliked person in her industry, and her industry is Hollywood. And the bad guy is Gal Gadot.
What was meant to be a fairy tale comeback had morphed into a full-blown digital witch trial. And in the court of public opinion, the villain wasn't the evil queen. It was Rachel herself.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged. I truly do believe that. There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. But the reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings. I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much your children love Snow White.
People hadn't forgotten her earlier press interviews, where she'd laughed off the 1937 classic as weird and creepy, brushing aside its romantic heart as hopelessly outdated. Those clips had aged like milk, and now they were resurfacing everywhere, fueling the backlash even further.
I'm a narcissist. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part. That people will assume is a love story just because, like, we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Opening weekend numbers were disastrous. Snow White managed just $45 million, a figure that might have been respectable for an indie release, but was a disaster for Disney, especially for a legacy princess film. For comparison, The Little Mermaid, controversy and all, had debuted at $95 million. The fact that Snow White brought in less than half of that sent a clear message. Something had gone very, very wrong.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now, and how they had her tweet out like a little yay, Snow White, can't wait, so excited, I love to play her. And she did it and got like millions of views, and they were like, good job, Rachel. And then she, like, minutes later followed it up with, and never forget, free Palestine. They flew an executive, one of the producers, out to go visit personally with Rachel Zegler to say, could you please take that down? Because we understand you can have your political views, but those aren't really helpful when you're trying to build an audience for a movie. Maybe you could save them for like your diary and your friends, but like maybe not, maybe just take the tweet down. And she wouldn't. And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White and the prince and young love and women who want to get married and Steven Spielberg, the executive producer of her previous movie, and white people who she claims wanted to know if she was really a Latina on her first movie.
And it wasn't just empty seats that told the story. Audiences actively turned on the film. On IMDb, the score free fell to a staggering 1.6, cementing Snow White as the lowest rated movie in the platform's history. This wasn't just a box office flop, it was cinematic infamy. In what should have been a triumphant moment, Rachel appeared on the red carpet alongside co-star Gal Gadot. The atmosphere was charged, the tension so thick it seemed to cling to every flash of the cameras.
Please welcome Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen.
Their work makes the impossible seem possible.
With breathtaking ambition, they create magic that wraps its arms around our wildest imaginations.
Here are the nominees for Best Visual Effects.
And just when it seemed like things couldn't possibly get worse, a new storm rolled in. Political commentators began weighing in, reframing Snow White not merely as a box office flop, but as a cultural statement. Soon, phrases like communist undertones started appearing in reviews and Reddit threads. Viewers picked apart the film's themes and dialogue, accusing it of being anti-royalty, anti-tradition, even anti-romance, turning what had been a simple fairy tale into the center of an ideological battleground.
All right, guys, I watched Snow White, so you don't have to. Let's get into it. Now, first things first, Snow White gets her name not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know. Rachel Zegler would be a miscast in that sense. Instead, she gets her name from surviving a snowstorm. Her father and mother are king and queen to a utopian communist society. I'm not joking, guys. Everybody shares and is mindful of what each person is getting, and we spread our resources evenly, which is where this idea of fairness, as Snow White is the fairest of them all, is really presented in the film.
Some conservative outlets claimed the movie's heart had been gutted by politics, its whimsy and moral clarity replaced with heavy-handed messaging. What was once a timeless fairy tale, they argued, had been turned into a vehicle for propaganda. For Rachel, the fallout was brutal. The goodwill she'd carried from West Side Story evaporated almost overnight. What she framed as a bold modernization of a classic was now widely seen as disrespectful. The poise and confidence that once charmed audiences began to read as arrogance, and her attempt to wrestle back control of the narrative only made things worse. What was meant to be her defining leading role had instead become the spark that fractured her public image and possibly derailed her entire career trajectory.